A new WWE tradition gets underway in the crossroads of America. Tom Campbell from Cultaholic Wrestling here with what happened at WWE Wrestlepalooza. The show kicked off with Brock Lesnar versus John Cena, Lesnar's first match since SummerSlam 2023, and a match that saw John Cena joined on the entrance with at least 50 young John Cena fans. Oh, look at them. Cena then sends them all to the back as opposed to using them to rush Brock Lesnar, which would have been a bold strategy. Before the match begins, Paul Heyman marches to the ring where he does the official in-ring announcement for his former client, declaring him the Cena-conquering, last real ass-kicker, Brock Lesnar. Lesnar starts strong, overpowering and cutting off Cena with strikes and even a British Bulldog-style running power slam before the suplexes begin in earnest. Cena fights out of a bear hug, attempted AA, but Lesnar crushes him with a clothesline and another German suplex. Cena pushes back, taking Lesnar down after 4 shoulder blocks and peels out 3 attitude adjustments as Lesnar keeps getting back up. However, Cena will eventually get a pinfall attempt on the final one, but it only gets 2. Lesnar retaliates with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 F5s. And with that, he pins and defeats John Cena. Lesnar's not done though. He gets back into the ring, F5s the referee, and continues his F5 flavored assault on a KO'd John Cena as children legitimately cry in the crowd. Eventually, John Cena comes round, but insists on leaving on his own feet as the crowd chant, "Thank you, Cena." A destructive start to WrestlePalooza. The crowd gather themselves as the Usos head to the ring to face Bron Breakker and Bronson Reed. During the countdown show, it was announced by Raw GM Adam Pearce that LA Knight would be the special guest referee. LA Stripes, if you will. The Usos start strong. Jimmy gets isolated shortly after this. Bronson Reed threatens to use a chair on Jimmy, but gets accosted by LA Knight for using a weapon, threatening a disqualification. Jimmy gains control of the chair, to which LA Knight just shrugs and turns a blind eye, allowing Jimmy to batter Bronson. Bron comes to help Bron, and Jey Uso runs interception with a dive to the outside. From here, Breakker drives Jey Uso into the turnbuckle post, leaving Jimmy to dance on his own for a spell, where he eats a ludicrous running shoulder tackle at ringside by Bron Breakker. Jimmy gets an opening when he drop kicks Bronson Reed into a steel chair, but Breakker drives Jey off the apron and into the steps at ringside to stay in control. Bron hit the classic Steiner Doomsday Bulldog for a 2 count, but Jimmy finally gets another opening when he dodges a charging Bronson Reed, who collides with a wedged steel chair in the corner. Hot tag to Jey Uso, who yeets into the match to turn the tide. The return of the 1D during this offensive flurry, but it doesn't get the win. LA Knight argues with Bronson Reed outside the ring, and Jey dives out and wipes out Bronson Reed. Knight accuses Jey of trying to dive onto him and gets him back into the ring. Soon after, we get another misunderstanding when Jey Uso swings with a steel chair and nearly hits LA Knight. Uso beats Bron Breakker with the chair, but seems to catch himself with the chair in the process. He starts bleeding a lot at this point. Amongst all of this chaos, Bron spears both Usos through the table propped up in the corner, following up with a Bronson Reed tsunami to give the Vision the win. Next, we crown a new WWE Women's World Champion with Stephanie Vaquer facing Io Sky. Before the match starts, as cameras catch Tiffany Stratton at ringside, it's confirmed that the winner of this match will face WWE Women's Champion Tiffany Stratton for the Crown Jewel Championship next month in Perth. Yeah, they're still doing that weird big belt thing. I'm just as shocked as you are. Anyway, the match starts with Techers, a stalemate between both competitors, which rolls into a series of pinfall transitions with no clear leader. Vaquer goes for the Devil's Kiss with Sky countering and finally getting some distance with a low drop kick and some knees to the chest. Vaquer will rally with a tarantula armbar and a running leg drop, but Sky strikes back with a double underhook backbreaker and 2 shote strikes, as well as a springboard missile dropkick with a dive outside the ring as a chaser. Vaquer, not to be outdone, counters a powerbomb to the floor and lands a big dive outside of her own. Back in the ring, they trade German suplexes before exchanging strikes. A second attempt at the Devil's Kiss is countered by Sky and followed up with a crossface and a knee to the face. Stephanie stuffs Sky with a dragon screw in the corner that seems to pop Sky's knee out. Gets a real reaction from the crowd and the commentators as well. Sky halts Vaquer's charge with a Hurricane Rana pin attempt, but she is on a bad leg. Despite that, she goes for over the moonsault. Vaquer gets the foot up to ruin Io's landing. Another dragon screw by Vaquer leaves her reeling, as well as the audience, and wide open for Bouncy Bouncy in the Devil's Kiss. Package Kibradora only yields a 2 count for Vaquer before Sky stops a Vaquer top rope attack with a shote. Sky's Spanish Fly lands, but Io Sky's bad knee slows her down. She's not able to make the pin quick enough, thus only getting a 2. Sky pulls the knee pads down and hits a bullet train and a running knee to Stephanie Vaquer on bare bone. Nobody home, though, for the over-the-moonsault, clattering both knees into the canvas. She's wide open as Io Sky for Stephanie Vaquer as she goes up top and busts out her own version of a spiral tap. It gives Vaquer the 3 count and begins her first reign as WWE Women's World Champion. Post-match, the 2 competitors bow and embrace each other, Sky placing the title on Vaquer's shoulder before leaving the new champ to celebrate. Stephanie heads out the ring and embraces her father at ringside, who takes the title and holds it aloft. I think that means he's going to be her first challenger. It's time for the Mixed Match Challenge. Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch facing CM Punk and making her in-ring return, AJ Lee. It looks like it'll be Seth Rollins and CM Punk to start, but after some tomfoolery, Becky Lynch gets tagged in and, in turn, so does AJ Lee. But she runs from Lee and tags her husband, where the two have a big evil kiss outside the ring, broken up by a CM Punk dive, like all good kisses should be. Punk briefly battles Rollins in the crowd before returning to the ring, where Becky gets some cheap shots in. AJ Lee will return the favor when Rollins ends up in her corner, though. Punk is in control until Becky pushes him into the steel steps. And from here, Punk is methodically beaten down by Rollins with occasional shenanigans from Becky Lynch, as AJ Lee desperately tries to get the tag. It almost comes undone when Seth Rollins attempts to military press Becky Lynch onto Punk, but Punk rolls out of the way. Rollins gets knocked outside, and AJ Lee is reaching for the tag, but it's thwarted by Becky Lynch, who pulls Lee off the ring apron just before Punk can reach her. Rollins busts out AJ Lee's dance to mock his rival's current dubious situation, but he ends up dancing into a GTS. Becky Lynch can no longer avoid it, and CM Punk tags AJ Lee, who launches at Lynch with a Thez Press, a Hurricane Rana, a spin kick, and a crossbody as the crowd chant, "You've still got it." Lee begins windmilling Becky Lynch when Rollins intervenes, only to get a good windmilling of his own. Lee avoids the manhandle slam and lands a tornado DDT using Rollins as a springboard. Punk and Lee then follow up with an assisted sliced bread on Rollins that lands with a splash from Lee onto Lynch. Punk and Lee hit stereo running knees, bulldogs, and shining wizards before Lynch and Lee square up, with Lee getting Lynch in the Black Widow whilst Punk puts Rollins in the sharpshooter. Becky Lynch rakes the eyes of Punk to break the sharpshooter. Rollins goes to drop AJ Lee, breaking the Black Widow, but he ends up in the Black Widow himself until Becky breaks it up. Stereo pedigrees from Rollins and Lynch only yield 2 counts. tables, and both hint at using Go to Sleep on Punk and Lee. But both get countered. First, Punk sending he and Rollins crashing out of the ring, and then AJ Lee countering into a Bexploder suplex. Rollins grabs Lee's leg and drops her onto the canvas pretty harshly, prompting Punk to rush in and hit the stomp on Seth Rollins. Becky then starts slapping Punk before Punk grabs her arm and then her leg for what looks like is going to be a sharpshooter. However, Rollins helps his wife escape, and it gives her an opening to apply a sharpshooter on Punk. Punk rolls through and puts the sharpshooter eventually onto Becky Lynch before Seth Rollins rushes to the ring and hits a pedigree and a stomp on CM Punk. AJ Lee breaks the cover with a stomp of her own, but it leaves it open to a manhandle slam that only gets a 2 count. All for brawl before Rollins and Lynch are dumped outside the ring, where AJ Lee and CM Punk clear off the announce tables. There's a battle atop the tables that ends as Punk is about to GTS Rollins, and Lynch throws AJ Lee at her husband and causes the announce table to crumble beneath them. Becky Lynch takes the advantage, grabbing AJ Lee and throwing her back into the ring, goes for the manhandle slam, but it's countered into the Black Widow, with Becky Lynch having nothing left to do but tap out, giving AJ Lee and CM Punk the win. Punk and Lee celebrate in the ring, with AJ Lee standing on top of the turnbuckle as her husband leads the cheers. No. Before the main event, we get an appearance by the American Badass, The Undertaker. He takes a seat at ringside with a confused-looking Stephanie McMahon, and he reveals to Steph that she will be the first inductee in the 2026 WWE Hall of Fame. Big pop from the crowd for this, and it's something that genuinely seemed to catch Stephanie by surprise. She's incredibly teary as she embraces The Undertaker and Nick Khan. How lovely is that it was The Undertaker that got to deliver that news to her, especially when you consider how their friendship started. And with that, we come to our main event of the evening. Drew McIntyre challenging Cody Rhodes for the undisputed WWE Championship. After the sing-alongs, the formalities, and the introductions, Cody is raring to go, and he slaps Drew across the face to get the party started. Aggressive techers bleed into heavy strikes. As Cody goes for a disaster kick, he stalls, holding his head. He does eventually land it, but Cody looks like he's in some distress early on, possibly some sort of brain fog that Wade Barrett writes off as cobwebs from being out of action, or a migraine possibly caused by the Glasgow kiss by Drew McIntyre on SmackDown. Cody dives onto Drew, goes for a second, and is caught in mid-flight and pushed into the ring post, then dumped over the announce table. Drew is in charge with overhead suplexes and chops, rocking Cody with an Alabama slam onto the steel steps for a near fall. Cody attempts to rally by stopping a Drew McIntyre top rope attack with a superplex, a disaster kick, and a Cody cutter, building momentum whilst clearly struggling with his head. Crossroads gets countered with a knee to the head, McIntyre following up with a Glasgow kiss and an avalanche white noise for a 2. Cody counters a Claymore and locks in the figure 4. Drew battles out and pulls the turnbuckle pad off in desperation and frustration. The ref nearly gets knocked down. He scurries outside the ring to avoid oncoming wrestlers, and Drew schoolboys the champ. Consequently, the ref's outside the ring, doesn't get into the ring in time for the count, and Cody kicks out. Cody Rhodes then sends Drew into the exposed turnbuckle, following up with a crossroads, but it only gets a 2. Drew is far from done. He lands an incredible somersault plancher and follows up with a Claymore, but it's a near fall only. Cody finds himself once again outside the ring, leaning against the announce table as he did all those weeks ago. Drew McIntyre is looking like he's got something in mind. The referee seems to be talking him out of it to no avail. Drew peels back, goes for a Claymore into the announce table, but Cody moves, and Drew puts his entire leg through the announce table. Angry Drew McIntyre limps away from the announce table, howling in pain, barely putting any weight on his leg. He limps back into the ring. Out of desperation, he counters a springboard attack with a Glasgow kiss, but he can't pull the trigger on the Claymore. He falls to the ground as he runs, leaving him wide open for a super Cody cutter and a crossroads for Cody Rhodes to pick up the 1, 2, 3 and retain his undisputed WWE Championship. Head issues be damned. The show concludes with Cody Rhodes standing tall as undisputed champ, with WWE ushering in another new era, this time on ESPN. And that was WWE Wrestlepalooza. Let us know what you thought in the comments below. I've been Tom Campbell from Cultaholic Wrestling. Stay safe and love you. Bye.